The US President Joe Biden has delivered a message of unity, praising America's democracy and vowing to make the next 74 days count before peacefully transferring power to Donald Trump. The address in the Rose Garden at the White House overnight comes amid deep soul-searching for the Democrats over Tuesday's convincing defeat at the ballot box.
The reaction to Donald Trump's stunning return to the presidency continues. We've heard from the Ukrainian and Russian presidents overnight. Plenty coming up this morning. We'll delve into all of it, the reaction in Australia as well. But first, let's go to Michael Rowland, who is live in Washington. It's an understatement to say, Michael, what a week you have had over there.
Yeah, it's quite epic, hasn't it? It's been, and certainly a big day here in Washington today and right around the country as the fallout from Donald Trump's election win continues. We'll get to what the President-elect has been up to in just a moment, but the big focus here in Washington, D.C. was, as you mentioned, Joe Biden coming out into the Rose Garden of the White House behind me and giving an address to the nation. Two key aims of that address. One was his bid to assure Americans there will be a peaceful transfer of power. He stressed he and Kamala Harris accepted the election result and was going to do all in his power to ensure the transition from his presidency to Donald Trump's presidency in January next year will be a peaceful and seamless one. In doing so, offering a not too veiled jab in Donald Trump's direction, given what we saw happen at the attempted transfer of power 4 years ago here in this city. The other aim from Joe Biden in making that address was to reach out to the Democratic Party supporters who he said were understandably hurt, disappointed. He urged them not to get too despondent, and he had a message to them: be resilient.
Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. We all get knocked down. But the measure of our character, as my dad would say, is how quickly we get back up. Remember, a defeat does not mean we are defeated. We lost this battle. The America of your dreams is calling for you to get back up. That's the story of America for over 240 years and counting. It's a story for all of us, not just some of us. The American experiment endures. We're going to be okay, but we need to stay engaged.
Joe Biden there in the White House earlier today. As you mentioned, James, there is considerable soul-searching going on within the Democratic Party at the moment about just what went so horribly wrong for Kamala Harris on election night. There are many in the party saying the Democrats have veered too far to the left, away from the centre ground of politics, away from addressing the bread and butter issues Americans want their politicians to address, focusing clearly on the economy. There are lots of fingers being pointed at the chap who lives behind me, in the house behind me, Joe Biden. Lots of Democrats pointing out that at the time of his election campaign in 2020, Joe Biden was promising to be a transitional president, a bridge president, by definition indicating that he'd step down and allow Kamala Harris to step up as president and give her more time and not the 100 days or so she ended up getting in the campaign against Donald Trump. Lots of quotes like this one I'll bring it up on the screen. This is from Jim Manley, a Democratic strategist. He says of Joe Biden, he's a good man who can be proud of his accomplishments, but his legacy is in tatters. This country is headed in a very dangerous direction, and it's due in part to his arrogance. And that is one of many quotes about Joe Biden from very angry Democratic Party figures here in Washington today.
And of course, Michael, we can see the White House there behind you. It's a beautiful shot. But a lot of attention has now turned to a pretty palatial mansion in Florida. What's going on down at Trump HQ?
Donald Trump, the president-elect, has kept a very low profile today. He and his team are planning the transition to his presidency, which will happen on January the 20th next year, looking at ways to implement his election promises, but more pressingly, looking at some of the appointees who will fill key government positions. There has been lots of speculation about Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest man, the owner of X and Tesla, taking some form of government role. Robert Kennedy Jr., Senator who ran briefly as a third-party candidate, perhaps emerging as a senior figure as well. I've noticed Rudy Giuliani in the last couple of hours was quoted as saying he was willing to serve, but I don't know whether Donald Trump would go that far. One of those in the frame as well is Florida Senator Marco Rubio, touted for a senior position, possibly in the foreign policy sphere. He had this to say about working in the next Trump administration.
Well, I'm going to work with the Trump administration in whatever capacity they feel is best. I'm not presumptuous to say they're going to pick me. Donald Trump makes that decision, and he makes good decisions about the people that work for him.
Marco Rubio there, so we'll expect to learn in the next week or several about who will form those, take those key positions in the Donald Trump presidency from next year. And just before I go, recapping the latest on the race for Congress, we know the Republicans have already flipped the Senate. They control the Senate, will control the Senate next year, and the smart money is on. The votes are still being counted, but the smart money is on the Republicans retaining control of the House of Representatives, and that means complete and total dominance of the political structures here by the Republican Party come January the 20th next year.
All right, Michael, thank you. Now, banning social media for children under the age of 16 will be the focus of a special National Cabinet meeting this morning. Our political reporter, Evelyn Manfield, joins us now from Parliament House in Canberra. Evelyn, what is the Prime Minister hoping to achieve?
Look, James, essentially Anthony Albanese wants to get agreement from the state and territory leaders on this minimum age of 16 for social media use. Then he will take legislation to the federal parliament. It looks like it'll pass probably before the end of the year. The opposition has indicated support for it because it's been wanting to see this minimum age of 16 for a little while now. And then once that passes, the legislation is set to become law and take effect 12 months later to give social media companies a little bit of time to be able to implement this. We did get some more details from the Prime Minister yesterday about how it would work, including that the onus would be on social media companies to be trying to block younger users rather than the young users themselves and their parents, and also that the penalties would apply to the social media companies. Also, that the ban would apply even if your parents are okay with you being on social media and even if you've already got an account. So if you're 13 or 14, you've got one at the moment, you'll be banned or kicked off if this does indeed take effect in 12 months' time. Now, there are still some questions about exactly how this is going to work in practice. We've heard from some tech types who've suggested that it would have to be some sort of identification or facial verification to be able to show that you are indeed old enough. The federal government has put money towards an age assurance trial, but they haven't chosen the company that'll take that on yet. So there's still some details to be worked out. From the perspective of Meta, who's obviously the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, they say that the onus in terms of that age verification should actually lie with the app stores, saying that you do spend a bit of time setting up a phone or device, and putting in your age is actually part of that. So they say that it should be at that process that prevents you from being able to download the app. But look, we're hearing sort of mixed reviews from young people as well. Some are aware of the harms that can come with social media. Obviously, others really enjoy using it to be able to connect with their friends and family. But look, the Prime Minister is certainly pushing state and territory premiers and chief ministers to get their endorsement today so he can take this to the federal parliament with support to have sort of an age limit right across the country rather than potentially different rules in different places.
All right, Evelyn, thank you.
In breaking news this morning, 3 people have been charged following the death of One Direction singer Liam Payne in Argentina. Payne had traces of alcohol, cocaine and a prescription antidepressant in his system when he fell from a balcony last month. Authorities in Argentina say those charged include someone who was close to Payne, a hotel employee and a suspected drug dealer.
Optus has been fined $12 million over its nationwide outage last year that left over 10 million people with no internet or phone access. The industry watchdog also found more than 2,000 people could not make an emergency call during the outage. ACMA says the outage could have been prevented and all telcos need to invest in better safeguards to keep consumers connected.
A heatwave health warning has been issued for parts of Queensland as the gruelling run of hot weather enters a fifth day. Temperatures are tipped to be several degrees above average today. Inland parts of the state, including Longreach, have recorded maximum temperatures above 40 degrees for 4 days in a row.
A mine in Victoria's west will produce commercial quantities of uranium from 2026, despite a state ban on mining the radioactive material and concerns about long-term radiation risks. It comes after US uranium giant Energy Fuels invested $183 million into the project. A spokesperson for Astron, which will operate the mine, says the project complies with state and federal laws and will have a negligible effect on public health.
Documents obtained by the ABC show a regional New South Wales hospital has banned its staff from providing abortions for some patients. Staff at Orange Hospital say they used to provide terminations regardless of the patient's reasons, but earlier this year they were told to stop doing that. A leaked document reveals the hospital only allows abortion if there are pregnancy complications or a medical reason, meaning some women have had to travel hours to a family planning clinic. The local health district has been contacted for comment.
The Tasmanian branch of Australia's Education Union says incidents of toxic masculinity and gendered harassment are growing. The union will be raising its concerns at a parliamentary inquiry into discrimination and bullying at schools across the state. It says this type of bullying and harassment is often driven by what students are seeing online.
The US Federal Reserve has cut interest rates by 25 basis points. It's the second rate cut in the easing cycle and comes amid cooling inflation and a weakening labour market.
And while all eyes were on the US election, a troop of 43 monkeys has escaped a research facility in South Carolina. Local police say Alpha Genesis first alerted them about the missing monkeys on Wednesday at about 1 in the afternoon local time. The facility, which has actually been fined in the past, Catherine, for monkeys escaping, says the 43 missing primates do not carry any disease, which is good news. Researchers are using food to try to entice the monkeys back to the lab and have asked local residents to keep their doors and windows closed.